Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Southeast Regional webinar. I see the people coming into the room. Please include in the chat where you're from. We'd love to hear where you're from today. We've got over 80 people registered for today's webinar.
Ooh, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. I'm in St. Pete, Florida too. Hi, Shannon.
Virginia. Port Richey.
Port
Austin.
Richey, Dallas.
Hi, Shannon.
Welcome, everyone.
I do have somebody from India that asked me for the link, so hopefully they made it on the call. They get the prize for coming the furthest.
That's right. Welcome. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. As you'll notice, we're in webinar format. So you'll be able to see our speaker today, James Garrett, and myself, Anik Clemens. I'm the Volunteer Engagement Director for ICF. And Rochelle Stone is our Program Director from ICF Central Florida. So welcome today to today's Southeast Regional webinar. We have 10 Southeast Regional webinars that we are offering this year. And this is a great program that started in 2019 and it's just taken off. So in this series, we collaborate between the 16 chapters in the Southeast region, and we're offering professional development that by industry experts who may not otherwise be available to some of our smaller chapters. We're also able to interact online with coaches in the Southeast region and globally. As Rochelle said, somebody has signed up from India. And also to offer CCEUs. So the continuing coach education units, it's really important for our credentialed coaches as every 3 years we have the 40 CCEs that we need for renewing our credential. So we're excited to have you join us today. So James Garrett will be presenting Mini Habits, a small tool for big success. Rochelle is going to introduce him in just a moment. Just wanted to give you a few participation tips. So you can include any discussion in the chat for us with each other. If you have questions for James specifically, please include them in the Q&A. So that way we can just be looking in the Q&A for any questions for James, and he'll be answering those throughout the presentation today. And if you wouldn't mind, we'd love to hear what you would like to gain from the webinar today. So if you could put those ideas in the chat, that would be helpful for James and Rochelle and myself and all of our participants today to see what you would like to learn from today's webinar. A few FAQs. So will you receive a copy of the slides and the recording from today? Yes, we will send out a post-webinar email. It will come through the Zoom platform. And in that email, you'll receive the recording from today. You'll receive the slide deck. You'll also receive a 3-question survey to gain your feedback from today's webinar. Will you receive your CEEs? Yes. So if you attended live and you attended at least 90% of the live webinar, we record your attendance and the chapter that you registered through will send your CCEs to you. If you are attending by phone, we would like you to please email Angie Holleran, angie.holleran@coachingfederation.org. That way she can record your attendance and make sure you get your CCEs. So we're not able to see who you are if you're calling in today. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle, and she is going to introduce our speaker today.
Thanks, Anik. So again, today, mini habits, a small tool for big success. I want to tell you a little bit about our speaker, James Garrett. James is a brain coach, brain hacker, and founder of Brain by Design. He's spoken on stages ranging from Harvard to TEDx, and his work has been featured by the New York Times, Fast Company, Harvard Business Review. He spent years doing research with some of the best psychologists in the world at Columbia, Tufts, and Yale. James is also a content creator and course builder, and his course on the science of coaching has been rated as one of the best courses for coaches and is currently certified by the ICF for 30 continuing education credits, 30. So his next course actually does begin September 9th, and anyone on today's webinar who registers will receive a discount on their program registration. I will drop that link into the chat for you for anybody that's interested. Today's program on mini habits, a small tool for big success, will be an excellent introduction as to what to expect. We will be sure to include information about James's upcoming course, along with contact resources for anyone interested in registering in the downloadable deck following today's webinar as well. So without further ado, James, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. So grateful to be with everyone today, and really excited for this topic. This genuinely is one of my very favorite topics, really in the world, habit formation in general, and specifically this getting momentum with a client or getting momentum in our own lives with this tool of mini habits. There's a real science around this and a real art around this. So today we're going to sort of unpack all of that. Let me just see if I can switch here to my slides. Okay, great. So I wanted to start out with this question, which I saw what everybody was wanting to learn from today's session, and I hope we can cover most of it. Why habits? What good are habits in your own life and in the lives of your clients and in the work that you do? What comes to mind? And again, feel free to type that in the chat as kind of the value, I guess, of habits. Let's see if we can. Lisa says calmness from chaos. Consistency that produces a positive outcome. I love the word consistency there. Routines don't have to think. Habits save mental energy. Yes, absolutely true. Provides routine that puts us in forward motion. Interesting. I love that combination of routine and forward motion. Habits become destiny. Yeah, habits are sort of sealing our future, right? In the present. I love that. Less decision making, actions we don't realize we are doing. Very true. Habits run in the unconscious, which is one of the reasons they end up being so powerful and so tricky at the same time. Repetition helps the brain. Absolutely, Lisa. Small steps toward lasting change. Yes, 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 Janine. Habits create our lives. Okay, so this is one of those, yes, down the road. This is what we do now is genuinely affecting down the road. Intention, stepping stones that improve your life. Habits have kept me on track during periods of stress and intense activity. I love that, Teresa. Interestingly, one of the most interesting things about habits is that when we get stressed, as stress levels rise, we revert back to habits, specifically old habits. So this can be a sort of saving, something that helps us in times of stress, or can also be sort of a regression, if old habits are not the most positive, habits. Either can happen, but stress, because danger goes up, brains crave familiarity. And habits are a familiar home base that the brain wants to get back to in times of danger or stress. Thank you for that. Habits mean good things will get done. This is so great. You guys are so great. Behavior change and transformation. Absolutely. Life is complex. Helps us with things that seem minor but are vital. Yes, 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 yes. Good. Yeah, no, this is all of these are absolutely correct. And habits are, Gretchen Rubin, famous science writer, said habits are the invisible architecture of our lives. It's a lovely metaphor for the power and structure that habits create. Wendy Wood, the world's foremost expert in habits, she's at University of Southern California. She estimates that about 43% of our behavior every day comes from a place of habit. So that's the science behind that quote by Gretchen Rubin. It is almost half of what we do every single day comes from a place of habit. That's a lot of what we do every day being that sort of automated, automatic way of executing behaviors in a day. So the question then becomes, how do we direct or design that 43%? How do we get in the driver's seat of that 43%? How do we make sure that that's intentional architecture rather than accidental or default architecture? One of the things to sort of be aware of right off the bat is your brain is this kind of habit-making machine. It loves habits. It will make them with or without your permission. The brain is habit agnostic, which is another fascinating feature of brains. Brain doesn't care if the habit is good or bad for you. It only cares that it's a habit and not a decision. So what your brain is really concerned with is saving energy. Brains are primarily concerned with saving and conserving energy. And because of that, it wants to turn anything that it spots that is a pattern in your life into a habit. Let me just sort of try to unpack this a little bit more. So decisions take place in the conscious part of our brain, and therefore they're very effortful. Conscious activity for the brain is one of the hardest things brains do. So in other words, brains hate making decisions because there's so much literally metabolic activity that's required in order to successfully execute a decision. It's just so much energy. And again, your brain's one of its main, think of your brain like an energy Scrooge. So your brain has plenty of energy, but it's kind of standing in front of this vault of energy with this, secret code on the door, and saying like, no, we're out of energy, none here. All the while there's plenty of motivation and energy in the tank, but it doesn't want to spend it. This is what our brains are doing constantly. And they're effectively lying to us. They're effectively saying, hey, no, we're done here. No reserve tanks, we're out. You better sit down, stop working, can't go for the run today because you're feeling pretty tired. This is the continuous message we get. And we need to see it for what it is, which is the brain putting up a little like stop sign, all the while hoarding plenty of energy and motivation. I want to share a quick story. I used to live in Jordan, the country of Jordan. We lived there for 6 years. And long story for how we got there. We were building brain-based curricula in partnership with Queen Rania. It was an amazing experience. But one day, I was feeling kind of tired in the afternoon, and that feeling of lethargy, exhaustion, which we all feel typically in the afternoon, I needed to push through it. I needed to power through the last couple hours of my day. So I walked up the stairs next to our office and went to the local corner store, just up the street, and talked to my friend Mohammed, and I said, hey, Mohammed, do you mind grabbing me one of those Pepsis in the cooler there? And Mohammed's like, yeah, no problem, James. So I give him the 25 cents. He gives me the Pepsi. I walk back down the stairs to our office, crack it over some nice cold ice, take a nice big swig. They make it with sugar over there, so it tastes better. And I go on with my day, and it's like problem solved, right? Suddenly I get this little uptick in energy. I can kind of focus a little bit better. And to my brain, it's like, oh, I had a problem, solved it. Great. All right, next day, 2 or 3 p.m. Not surprisingly, I'm feeling the same kind of motivational and energetic slump. Can't quite focus. I'm surfing YouTube. Well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I focus? I'm just tired. I'm not lazy. I'm just tired, right? Which is typically what happens. What looks like laziness is actually exhaustion. Dan and Chip Heath beautifully coined that phrase. But my brain, of course, serves up the solution that worked yesterday. So it says, it worked yesterday. Why not? Well, you go talk to your friend at the Dukan, the corner store. And so I do go up the same stairs, talk to my same friend, ask for a similar, bottle of Pepsi, bring it back down the stairs, walk into the office, crack it over some cold ice, drink it, same kitchen. And my brain at this moment is thrilled. My brain at this moment is like, yes, yes, yes. Not just because the Pepsi tastes good, that's one thing, but it's actually because my brain at this moment has spotted a pattern. And again, brains are master pattern detectors. That's essentially, if you can boil down sort of intelligence or what our brains are good at, it's really pattern detection. So my brain spots this pattern and immediately, again, unbeknownst to me, in the background, says, I see what's going on here, James. You want me to turn this into a habit because you keep doing this around the same time, roughly the same behavior. It's a trigger, the trigger is exhaustion. Behavior, grab the Pepsi, the reward, you get this little uptick in energy. It's this perfect habit loop. And so, you know what? I'll take it from here. Don't worry about a thing. I got your back. And I'm just going to make sure you do this every day. All right. No decision-making required. I got this. I'm with you. But of course, my brain's doing this all invisibly. It's not actually notifying me of this. I just think I'm solving a quick problem I'm having a quick solution to a sort of small afternoon energy slump problem. So sure enough, my brain over time turns what was a decision into a habit. Now, why does this matter? And what is the relationship between that and the energy Scrooge? Well, again, habits run in the unconscious, as I mentioned earlier. So they're very, very easy to operate. Unconscious processes, this happens deeper in the brain, areas like the basal ganglia, among others, are responsible for habits of running habit programs or sort of neural pathways, right? A sequence in a sense. And when things are running in that part of the brain, it's just simply way less energy, way less metabolic cost to doing the exact same behavior. So again, the brain is outsourcing the same behavior to a different part of the brain, moving from the decision-making part of the brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, to these different, deeper subconscious part of the brains, like your basal ganglia, which are much easier and much less energy to run. So of course, the brain is going to do this. But again, my brain isn't interested in my long-term health, or it's not really seeing that, I guess, is what I should say. In the moment, what it's seeing is, I don't want to spend energy making a decision. What I want to do is make this easier for everyone. All right. So this was a habit by default. Of course, I didn't want to really form that Pepsi habit. It formed me over time, if you know what I mean, mostly around the midsection. But 20-ish, 25 pounds later, a lot of other, things I was doing to not really care for my health. These were habits by default, meaning I was not intentionally forming those habits. They sort of snuck up on me, and bad habits can feel like this. Like they somehow sneak up on us and suddenly we're way downstream from where it started and we go, how did we get here? Right. So again, with clients that we work with, the question is, how do you go from habits by default to habits by design? How do you shift from allowing that 43% or nearly half of what you do every day to sort of be architected by the randomness of your environment to getting super intentional and very, again, grabbing the steering wheel of that habit forming process and really forming the habits that you want to create? How do you do that? All right. We'll keep asking and answering that question, because habit formation is really a skill set. right? And so this is the meta skill set that we're working on, again, both in ourselves and with the folks that we serve. Any guesses how long a new habit takes to form? Again, feel free to put that in the chat box, like length of time, how many days does a new habit take? Good, 21 days, 21, 21, 21, 32, 45, 66 weeks, 21, lots of 21, 60 to 90 days, 49, 66 until it sticks. Yeah, true, Connie. 30, 66, 60, 60, depends on complexity. Yes, it does, Ed, good point. Depends on the habit. Yes, also, yes, but both of you are correct. 60, 21, 30, 66, 62, good. All right, so the science, and this is Wendy Wood's lab again, USC, who figured this out, was actually her grad students moving beyond her lab, and they were in the UK when they discovered this. But what they found is that habits take, on average, 66 days to form. I think somebody nailed it in the chat. So 66 days. Wow, so much longer than 21. Like, that's no fun, right? It's sort of like well, we got longer, right? 21 hour already was a bit of a lift, but 66. Yeah, around 2 months, right, is sort of the rule of thumb I'm using, both with myself and with the people I work with. It's 2 months. 2 months. So if I want to form a new, meditation habit, I've got to be working on that for about 2 months every day for that to really settle in and really stabilize into a fully formed habit. Now, interestingly, harder habits take a little bit more. So again, 66 is an average, and more difficult habits, the complexity thing people were mentioning in the chat, yes, it does matter. So the more complex, the more difficult essentially a habit gets, the more time it's going to take. So exercise ends up being one of those difficult habits. And most people hate that this is true, but I've teased out that specific habit of exercise, and it takes around 91 days. So 3 months. And again, it's like the news just keeps getting worse, 3 months of going for a walk or a run every morning or get to the gym every day, 3 solid months of pretty much doing that daily is what it takes for it to genuinely settle down and really be a routine that feels like you can't not do it. Like it's just what you do. It's like brushing your teeth. It would feel weird to walk out the door having not brushed your teeth. In the same way, not working out for a day, it would feel weird not to do it, as in it's really hard not to do it. That sort of flip takes about 3 months. Now, I do have a little bit of good news. Mini habits, and that's what we'll be talking about, the second half of today, take a lot less. So mini habits take about 1 month, according to BJ Fogg. BJ Fogg is really the professor who kind of built out this research around tiny habits. And so his best estimation is it takes about a month to lock in mini habits. So mini habits are about a month. Medium size or medium difficulty habits are about 2 months, and difficult habits are about 3 months. Now, it doesn't mean that habits can't get more than that, right? It really does. There's a big range here, but again, a good rule of thumb is 1 to 3 months, 2 months being the average. All right, so why does this take so long? What is going on up there in our, gray matter for this process to take so long, right? Let me try to give you a metaphor and an analogy for what happens. The brain science, the sort of neural change that's going on during this habit forming process. So this is the Nevada desert. This is roughly, between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, kind of what you're looking at on that drive. The freeway that cuts between there is I-15. I want you to imagine yourself looking out the car window, looking at this, sagebrush here, and pulling over to the side of the road on I-15, and then actually starting to drive on the sagebrush. Immediately, the speed of the car is going to go from like 80 miles an hour, which is the speed limit around those parts, to 5 miles an hour, maybe. The conversation with your friend or significant other is going to come to a screeching halt. You're like, I'm trying to focus here. Everything in you wants to get back on I-15. It's bumpy, it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, it feels dangerous. This is a bit what new habits feel like, right? You've got these well-worn grooves, ways you've always done it. You get off that well-worn, highway, you get onto the sagebrush, and it feels like foreign territory. I don't want to do this. I want to get back on what I always do. But if you stick with the thing you're doing and you do it again and again and again over time, this happens slowly, but over time, tire tracks will, pop out, which is a pure function of just driving on that barren patch of earth again and again and again. Now you can go 15, maybe 10 to 15 miles an hour. But if you keep doing this again and again and again over time, maybe hundreds of cars start doing this, it'll form a dirt road. It will even level out even more, and you can do maybe 30-ish miles an hour, safely. So it's an improvement. It's nothing to write home about, but it's better than what you had before. Now, I want you to kind of imagine thousands of cars start driving on this random dirt road in the middle of Nevada. Again, day in, day out, day in and day out. What's really interesting is the satellite images that start coming back to the Nevada Department of Transportation they're gonna notice, right? There's so much traffic on this one dirt road. I don't know what is going on out there, but clearly, like, Jim, we should throw some resources at that road. Why don't we just pave it? Because there's so much demand, it's worth investing resources. So that's what they do. And it goes from being a dirt road to a paved road. And this is the big leap, right? This goes from maybe 30 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour. So more than double the speed. And this is what makes it very fast, right? The pavement is really the big change that allows the pathway to be traveled on at high speeds and be incredibly efficient. Now, this might even happen where, over time, they'll even expand it even into a multi-lane freeway, depending on demand. So again, this only makes sense. Roads evolve and change depending on what's needed, and that what is needed is evidenced by use, right? So use it first, then change second. So what does this have to do with brains? Our brains are these complex interconnected systems of neural 2-lane tire tracks, dirt roads, 2-lane highways, and 6-lane freeways. So the behaviors that we do a lot of look like this 6-lane freeway, a neural equivalent of this 6-lane freeway. The ones that we do sort of semi-often look like the road kind of parallel to it. It's like a 2-lane highway over here, kind of running parallel to this. The ones we do, but just not that often, kind of look like these neighborhood roads up here. For example, teeth brushing habit, 6-lane freeway. Now, that's interestingly, it's with your dominant hand, whichever hand that is, whatever you do it the most with. That's the actual specific neural pathway. For me, it's my right hand. It's very smooth motion. I don't think about it. I'm thinking about breakfast and the plan for the day and whatever else is coming up in my day. But if I try to brush my teeth with my left hand, almost the exact same motion, just literally a different hand. I'm using these neighborhood roads, meaning the neural pathways, to brush my teeth with my left hand because I've rarely, if ever, done it. I feel incredibly uncoordinated. It's so shocking. If you don't believe me, do this tonight. It's so awkward to try to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. You really have to think about every move. It's so much effort. And the reason it's so much effort is because you're traveling on neural pathways that are a little rusty. They're not that well, and maybe they're not paved. Maybe they're just a dirt road, or maybe there are a couple of tire tracks out there. But that's the nature of neurological change. And this is what our brain is this complex interconnected system again, of neural highways and pathways. And all of those have different levels of strength or ease or efficiency based on how much we've used them. All right. I'm going to just zero in quickly, and I promise this is as much neuroscience as we'll get to, and then we'll zoom back out to the level of habit. But just to give you a kind of visceral sense of what this looks like on a single neuron level. Neurons look like trees. So we have about 86 billion neurons in our brains. So we have 86 billion trees. So basically, there's a neural Amazon forest in our head. It's a neural forest, right? That's the way to think of it, because all these trees are connected to each other with their roots and their branches. It's a beautiful, beautiful, what's going on between our ears is shockingly beautiful. But a single neuron looks like a tree. All right, so you've got the branches, you've got this nice long trunk down the middle called the axon, and then you have roots. In this image, the roots are actually chopped off, so you can see the myelin. But along the trunk of the tree, the part I want to focus on is what's called myelin sheath. So again, I know a lot of you know this already, but myelin is insulation for the neuron. And when neurons are fully insulated, when they're deeply insulated, basically the speed, again, think of the analogy of the car, the speed, like the pavement, that you can travel on that particular neuron goes incredibly high. But when they're unmyelinated, it's incredibly low or lowly, or, low myelination. So poorly myelinated neurons fire at about 2 miles an hour. Think how slow that is, right? You can walk. You have to really slow down your walk to get to 2 miles an hour. Fully myelinated neurons fired about 200 miles an hour. So it's like a Japanese bullet train. So the difference between an unmyelinated and a myelinated neuron is 100-fold, from 2 miles an hour to 200 miles an hour. So that's just the raw processing power of a single neuron. Now, again, you can multiply that by millions and then billions, and you can sense the raw power, the dormant potential sitting inside every human brain. Now, again, how do these layers of myelin get wrapped? You actually have an entire subset of cells. They're called oligodendrocytes. This is a terribly long word, but they call them oligos in the lab. They're the pavers. They're the construction workers, all right? So they sit around and they see what, you're going to do today. And sure enough, you get up with the alarm and you go for that run. And then because you did that, they, snap their fingers and say, all right, let's do it. Let's wrap those running neurons and the neurons that link that to the trigger that came before that, which is the alarm clock, right? So you're linking the trigger and the behavior. So all those pathways get myelinated. In other words, you have your brain is just one big ongoing construction project. And the way that different parts of the brain get activated to wrap myelin or pave those particular pathways is what you do. So brains don't care who you are, they only care what you do. And then they respond to what you do by reinforcing or strengthening that particular neural pathway. So this is incredibly hopeful information. And it's something, again, what we're talking about, of course, is the science of neuroplasticity. This is not the only way neuroplasticity happens, but it's one of the easiest mechanisms to understand within the kind of field of neuroplasticity. So brains are constantly changing. And again, when I'm working with my coaching clients, this is threaded throughout our conversation, because what it does is it opens up this possibility for the person like, oh, wow. So not only can I change my behaviors, but I could actually change my brain in the process. Like I'm my own neural behavioral architect, but also my own neural architect. Wow. That's crazy, right? There's this lovely quote that says, neurons are a technology that turn experience into biology. Neurons are a technology that turn experience into biology. So again, your brain doesn't care. Daniel Coyle said, your brain doesn't care who you are. It only cares what you do. So again, what we do really matters. The effort we put in. All this is the neurological underpinnings of what Carol Dweck has discovered and sort of built out over the last, three or four decades with growth mindset, right? This is the underlying neuroscience of a growth mindset, which is just to say effort is what really focusing on effort is what makes people feel hopeful that they have the possibility of change, which then drives them to put in that effort. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they actually do put in the change and the effort and the time and everything they need to literally rewire their brains and become a better version of themselves. So it's a powerful, powerful scientific truth that then becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. All right, so I just want to look at this going down the axon. These are the layers of myelin from a microscopic view, where you have these rings of myelin. But the big takeaway here is that your brain is like a muscle. So if there's one thing you're pulling away from all that kind of neuroscience, kind of detailed, more technical stuff, it's that your brain is really like a muscle. As you use it, it gets stronger with effort.
James.
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions. I'm interrupting because they're related, and I just want to throw them out there to you.
Please.
Both of them have to do with, in reverse of building habits, breaking habits. The first one, how do you counter a bad habit? And the second, you've clearly articulated how new habits are formed. How long does it take to extinguish an old habit? So I wasn't sure if you're getting into this, so I thought I would bring it up to see how and where you want to address it.
Yeah, bad habits are a very common question. There's really two main strategies for breaking bad habits. One is substitution. So I'm going back to both Charles Duhigg and James Clear's popularization of what's called the habit loop. So it's trigger, some cue or prompt, some reminder, some thing in the environment that says, oh, what I'm supposed to do next is brew my morning coffee, right? It's like that the trigger for that is actually the time of day or the action of getting out of bed, right? But that's what comes immediately before the behavior. That's what we mean by trigger. The thing that tells the brain, oh, I know what's supposed to come next. And brains are predictive machines. So they're always trying to anticipate what's the next thing in the sequence of what I'm supposed to do next. What is that next thing? So triggers really matter. So trigger, behavior, which is the habit itself, and reward. Trigger, behavior, reward. Trigger, behavior, reward. This is the habit loop. Now, the behavior, I'll just use my own life as an example, that my behavior that I adopted, unfortunately, while I was in the Middle East, was this sort of kind of Pepsi guzzling afternoon habit, right? Trigger, feeling of exhaustion. Behavior, drink the Pepsi. Reward, energy uptick. Now, when I got home, one of the things I started doing is saying, woo, let's try to rewire this one because this is not helping me in any way. So trigger, I still get tired-ish in the afternoons. That really hasn't changed. Now, behavior is what I substituted, right? So the trigger and the reward actually ideally want to stay roughly the same, especially the reward if you can make it stay the same. But the behavior is what I've swapped. So instead of a Pepsi, now I take an afternoon nap. So it's a 27-minute nap. There's a scientific reason for that. 7 minutes to fall asleep. You don't want to be sleeping longer than 20 minutes. It's really a 20-minute nap, or you'll feel groggy, right? So 20 minutes is the ideal amount of time to take an afternoon nap. And then the energy uptick is the reward. So trigger, I feel exhausted. I've swapped the Pepsi for the nap. And now I get the same reward. In fact, it's even better. Sort of a cleaner kind of energy uptick. It doesn't feel jittery. It doesn't feel, there's no crash like later on. Of course, there's no weight gain or other problems and whatever. I'm not sure what I'm dumping into my body. So that's substitution. In other words, I'm crowding out the bad habit with a new, better habit that just simply replaces the bad habit. So that's one option. Another option, which I think Wendy would probably say is her go-to for trying to break bad habits, is what she calls friction. So friction is this idea that there's always a certain number of steps between you and doing the behavior, right? Think, let's just analogize this for making a purchase online, right? You want some kind of new breakfast, protein powder to go in your smoothie or something. So you're going to order off a website. Now, think of the steps and the layers. You've got to choose the product, what you want. There's always a decision there, right? Then you have the kind of just slightly annoying friction of putting in your name, your address, whipping out, finding your wallet, getting the credit card. Do I need to put on this one or the other one? Typing in that credit card number, having a little bit of a worry, like, is this a secure website? Like, oh, that's friction, right? Then finally getting to the purchase and you hit go, right? All right, so companies are always trying to reduce friction because they want us to take the behavior more quickly and more easily. So companies are always like, you know what, we'll save your credit card information for you. You don't have to put it in next time, right? In some companies like Amazon, for example, have like reduced this to like a one-click experience, the one-click buy option on Amazon. So that's eliminating friction completely. Now that you understand a little bit more about friction, what it is and what it isn't, you either want to decrease friction for behaviors you want to do more of, or increase friction for the behaviors you want to do less of. So for example, we'll get to this in just a bit, but one of the things I do is I set out my exercise clothes next to my bed, or at least that's what I was doing for a number of years. Now that's a way to decrease the number of steps between, for example, I've already decided what it is I'm going to wear. And I put that incidentally next to the bed as opposed to in the closet, which sounds minor, maybe 3 minutes of difference. But when you're under that cozy down comforter and it's December, 3 minutes in the cold seems like an eternity. And everything in you wants to just stay. And you're in a half brain fogged state because you're not a morning person. I'm not. But it's just like, right? That's friction. And then your phone alarm goes off next to you. And what's better than like, the phone, right? It's like this always available temptation to just check the email, social media, the news, whatever, just like whatever we do on phones, right? All of that is standing between you and getting out the door to go for your run. It's all friction. So again, clothes next to the bed. I now sleep in my exercise clothes. I know that sounds wild, like kind of like weird, but I've even cut out the step of putting them on. So I put them on the night before and they're now officially my pajamas. The only thing I don't wear to bed are my shoes and socks. So yeah, that's what we're talking about, eliminating friction for good habits. Now my phone, incidentally, is charging in the laundry room because I don't want to see that thing at any point in my morning. Just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it because if I see it, it's a trigger, right? Trigger, behavior, reward, information novelty. Really what we're doing when we're surfing social media is we're infovores, right? We get this little hit of dopamine every time we anticipate that something good is about to happen. And then we're learning new information, or we're catching up, we're seeing our notifications, we're seeing if people liked our post. This is a bit of a social reward, whatever. But again, that phone is far away. That's increasing friction for the behavior I don't want to do. I know that phone's going to trip me up. It's going to stall me on getting out the door. And if it stalls me just enough, because we have a pretty tight routine in the morning with our kids, it might mean not getting out the door for the exercise routine that way. So that's increasing friction for the behavior I know is going to trip me up, decreasing the friction for the behavior that I want to do. So that's friction. It's really substitution and friction are two of the best ways. So again, with habits of any kind, increasing friction, make it more annoying and ideally really annoying to do the bad behavior or the bad habit. Again, digitally, I would say website blockers. So my favorite website blocker is getcoldturkey.com. Don't rely on willpower not to surf the web. Outsource it to a third-party app that says, I can't surf these websites during these work hours, right? that's a wiser use of energy management, because then it's like, oh, I'm just putting friction between me and this sort of behavior that, yeah, it's a little bit fun in the moment, but ultimately I'm trying to get work done, right? All right. Good. Yes, getcoldturkey.com. That is correct, Rochelle. All right. Now, William James, he was really the kind of father of modern American psychology. And what he said is, you want to make your nervous system your ally instead of your enemy. You want to make your nervous system your ally instead of your enemy. You want to work with your brain, not against it. So, apologize for that. Oops. Not sure what just happened. Hang tight. Okay. There's two problems when it comes to forming habits. If this were all Skittles and unicorns, if this were all easy, I'm making it sound kind of easy, by the way, and I get that. It's not, right? It's hard. And here's why. Here's some of the reasons that it actually is harder than it may seem on the surface. One is that motivation is like a roller coaster. So, we're motivated in certain moments, and we're really unmotivated in others. And oftentimes we don't even know why. We're like, I just feel like a pile of potatoes today. I am not sure why, but I don't feel like doing anything. I don't know if I slept poorly. It's just like a little bit mysterious, right? And this actually happens all throughout the day. We have these good sprints of energy, and then we have these kind of dips. We have good sprints of energy, we have these dips. So motivation is amazing when you have it, but it really sucks when you don't. So what you want to start thinking through is, okay, I want to leverage this tool when it's there, but I don't want to rely on it as though it's always going to be there. So one of the reasons that our motivation energy cycles like this is something called Ultradian Rhythms, ULTRA, Ultradian Rhythms. Now, Ultradian rhythms are daytime energy rhythms, and they mirror almost exactly our nighttime sleep cycles. So, not surprisingly, bodies are rhythmic, right? They do everything in pretty predictable cycles. And ultradian rhythms are the energy cycle that move through our body. Now, this is research from Ernest Rossi, by the way, if anybody's interested in this topic. But what happens, we have about 90 minutes of good energy and about a 20-minute dip in energy. About 90 minutes of good energy and about a 20-minute dip in energy. And we go throughout the day like this. This is not weird. This does not mean we are unmotivated or uncommitted or lazy. It means we're human. So 90-20, 90-20, 90-20, 90-20, which again is not surprisingly what a parallel line of research was around, which is around how long we can stay in a kind of focused state, is around 90 minutes. We have good focus for about 90 minutes, at which point our kind of ability to stay focused steadily declines, which is why I'm glad this webinar has 90 minutes. And you'll notice, right? You'll notice your ability to stay focused starts declining, and your urge to distract yourself, to reach for sort of empty calorie brain candy of the internet, right? To open a new tab and just check Facebook or whatever, starts going up. So it's both things happen at the same time when we feel unmotivated. Yeah, the researcher with Ultradian Rhythms is Ernest Rossi, Rossi. He wrote a brilliant book called The 20-Minute Break, I think is the name of the title of the book. Okay. All right. Willpower running out is the other main problem when it comes to habit formation. So willpower is like an inexhaustible resource. It's like your cell phone battery. So as you use it, you actually use it up. So it's not a steady thing. It's not a character trait that we sort of, have a lot of all the time. It's like, no, at different times of the day, I'm going to have different or varying levels of willpower, depending on how much I've been using that day. So again, what this effectively means is that between, there's sort of these danger zones in the day, One of the big ones is afternoon. It's typically when we have willpower lapses or, when we do things like grab that massively juicy cookie in the break room or whatever, So afternoons, right before dinner, when we get hangry, we haven't eaten, we're tired, we're exhausted, right? This is when we're really low in willpower. But the main one, I think the most important one, is really 8 to 11 p.m. So this is post dinner, maybe an hour after dinner. Just hanging out, maybe we have family around, I'm in a place where I still have small kids. We're having, time to just be, to relax, to hang out. And that's all great. But, for me, it's like kids go to bed, it's maybe 9 or 9:30. It's me and my wife, we're talking, we're chatting. And it's parent time, which is great, when it goes as planned, meaning the kids get to bed early enough that there actually is enough time to chat and debrief and kind of reconnect. But another very sneaky thing starts happening, which is like, kids are in bed. Do you want to pull out some hot chocolate and watch a nice, something like a movie or something, which again is fine, except that it can become a problem if eating, not eating after dinner is one of your goals, right? So I'm not going to say whether or not that's a problem for anybody in particular, but if you want, and for me, not eating after 8 is one of my goals. I don't think it's necessary. I'm usually not hungry, right? So think of that trigger behavior reward. What is the trigger at that time? Usually it's boredom. It's just like, slow. I also have that weird narrative, like, it's been a really hard day. Don't I deserve it? Little Ben and Jerry's. Don't we all deserve it at 9 o'clock? It's that thing, right? So, but what I'm really tapping into is, I'm on 2% willpower. I have no impulse control left. That's what's actually driving my behavior. And yes, I am bored, but I don't have any brakes left in my brain. The brakes have gone out. So this is the main problem with willpower running out. And again, over time, you can get better at managing or using tools to see that problem before it arises and plan for it. So one of the things I do as a ritual, a habit, I'm the dish guy in our family. So after I close the dishwasher, that's like the last thing I do, I walk straight into my closet, put on my workout clothes, which are my pajamas. I brush and floss my teeth. It's like 7:45. Is it really late enough to get ready for bed? No. But I do that whole thing because both I'm signaling to my brain that we're done. The kitchen's like closed, right? But I'm also saying to myself, I'm introducing friction between me and eating. So if I eat again, I've got to go through that whole messy brush, floss routine. I hate flossing. I don't even know why I do it, but I do it every night. But I kind of hate it. It's like 5 to 10 minutes to really do a proper floss. So that's just friction, right? So I'm introducing positive friction in that sense because I don't want to eat. And I know if I eat, I'm going to have to go brush and floss again. And that's just a little bit annoying, a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit annoying, and usually annoying enough that I'm typically not going to eat. All right, so these are the kinds of pre-thinking strategies I'm talking about for how to overcome that willpower battery problem. All right, one of my favorite and best kind of suited solutions to these main two problems when it comes to, motivation and willpower is mini habits. Now, mini habits came from a very fun and interesting story. So there was this professor at Stanford, his name's BJ Fogg, I've mentioned him before. And BJ Fogg decided one day that he wasn't doing enough exercise. Now, this is him according to him, right? I was like, I want to do more exercise. This is always great. If we're working with somebody and they're like volunteering what they want more of, it makes the coaching session really easy, right? Or easier, I should say. He wants to do more exercise. He's a behavioral scientist and he can't change his own behavior. And that's embarrassing. So he looks back at the pattern of his life And he says, you know what? The thing I keep doing is every time the new year changes, what I'm really good at is going big. I don't mess around. It's like go big or go home, BJ. And so I have these huge goals. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's that I'm doing too much too soon. Maybe what I really need to do is decrease the amount or the intensity of what it is I'm doing. Oh, maybe I need to go small or go home, right? Like maybe really small. I don't know. I'm a scientist. Maybe I could test this. So he does. He decides he wants to do 2 push-ups after he goes pee every single time. 2 push-ups. I mean, nobody's getting a 6-pack or, sculpted triceps from 2 push-ups. It's just not happening. 2 push-ups. So in a given day, he's doing around 20 because, you go to the bathroom obviously multiple times. However, within about, so he's just testing this, and it's sort of this weird little experiment he's doing in his own life. Now, first couple of weeks, he's doing about 20 push-ups a day. By week 3, he's doing maybe 50-ish push-ups a day. And by about the end of the month, he's doing over 100 push-ups a day. So a couple of things he notices. One is that the habit doesn't stay constant. It actually is growing pretty exponentially. It's actually way different. He didn't expect that to happen. But the main thing that he noticed was that he never missed. Consistency reigned supreme, So he just never missed. And before, he was like a yo-yo. It's like, yeah, I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off, right? And we've all felt that yo-yo dieting, yo-yo exercising, yo-yo meditating, whatever the thing is, we're like on, off, right? But this one really stuck. It was super consistent. And here's what he found. He started bringing in hundreds and then thousands of people into his lab, studying in their home environments. And he realized, wow, it's not just me. This works for everybody. So here's what he found. All successful behavior change attempts follow this nice green curve. So on the vertical axis, you've got motivation, high motivation at the top, low motivation at the bottom. On the horizontal axis, you've got level of difficulty. So hard on the left, easy on the right. And again, there's a continuum. So the closer you get to that easy side, the less motivation you're going to need to successfully accomplish the goal or habit you're trying to achieve. So in other words, anything up and to the right is success. So if I want to drink a glass of water when I woke up in the morning, that's a fairly easy behavior. And I don't need that much motivation. And I'm going to cross that green threshold and have success at that particular behavior. Now, if I want to get to the gym for 60 minutes a day, that's moving me straight down that continuum to that hard place. And it's going to be much harder, meaning I'm going to need lots and lots of steady or consistent motivation over time to successfully achieve my goal. So this is what he found, and this is the relationship between motivation and difficulty. And anything, again, down and to the left is an unsuccessful attempt at changing one's behavior. All right, we'll get back to this graph, I promise. Any guesses how many New Year's resolutions fail every year? Again, feel free to put that in the chat. 98%, most, all of them, 90, all of them. Oh, shoot. We have a little bit of experience in this collectively, don't we? We have a little experience. I know I do in my own life. 95, 98, 195, greater than 90, 99, 77, 99, lots of 90s. 95, 90 plus, 90%. Okay. All right. Well, you're pretty much dead on. All right. The data show that it's 92. So 92% of the time, 92% of New Year's resolutions that are set every January fail. So that means we've got about an 8% success rate. Us humans collectively are succeeding at our own goals and behavior changes around 8% of the time. Now, I don't know if you've ever gotten an 8% on a test, like in junior high or something, but it's a little bit shocking, it's like getting one right, out of whatever number of questions, right? It's abysmal. Like 8% is abysmal. I'm pretty sure it's an F minus, 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 right? It's not like a B or a C. It's like, wow, like we're not doing good at this. So why? Like I said, neuroplasticity is the real deal. The science is very clear on this. And what I've come to believe is the problem is it's not that we can't change. Quite the opposite. We're very changeable. It's that we're not skilled at change. And behavior change is just that. It's a skill set. And it's like, where would we have learned this? School? Nope. Too busy learning algebra. Home? Unlikely. Maybe you might have absorbed one or two things from a good parent. Maybe. But certainly not. Nobody's teaching this, right? How we change our own behaviors. And yet it seems, at least to me, to be one of the most important skill sets we could master in our lives. So skill sets, thinking of this as a skill set really matters. All right. The other big piece, so why do so many New Year's resolutions fail? Typically they do what BJ Fogg did, which is they start in that top left quadrant where things are, it's go big or go home. Like this is definitely an Instagram worthy New Year's resolution list. And all my friends liking my post and it's going to be amazing. And then January happens. In those first few weeks, man, you see me at the gym every day with that, dumbbell, like doing this, right? But like week 3, it's like, where did those videos of, James go? And then week 4, I'm like back, And week 5, I'm disappeared again. Week 6, I was just like gone silent. This is the trajectory, right? It's up and down, up and down, up and down. It's that yo-yo thing. And most people give up because they feel demoralized by the inconsistency. Many habits are like, whoa. We've got this all wrong. We're starting in the wrong quadrant. We need to start not in the top left. We need to start in the bottom right, where things are easier, where there is no resistance to doing the hard thing because it actually is not that hard. And then over time, we can backdoor this. We can sort of build habits in stealth mode. And the question is, how does this happen? Why do many habits work, whereas other habits don't work quite as well? These are the reasons that many habits are the winning strategy that they are. Again, I've emphasized this already, but many habits build consistency. Consistency is more important than intensity, right? Because Aristotle, it was actually Will Durant summarizing Aristotle, but he said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So repetition, repeatedly do, is what makes us who we are. And this relationship between consistency versus intensity really matters because most of us are going too intense too quickly. And we think it's not worth it. Is it really worth it to get to the gym if I'm not going to do like a solid 30 to 45 minute workout, maybe an hour? It's just not worth it, right? So I'll go tomorrow, right? So we focus on intensity first and consistency. We misprioritize those two things because again, intensity is not going to get you to habits, but consistency will. So if you can build a foundation of consistency and then grow in consistency first, really get that locked in, and then start inching up the intensity over time, that's the better strategy. So again, remember, consistency beats intensity every time. This is what I always tell myself. I've got a 2-mile run I do every day. Now it takes me about 20 minutes. Sometimes because I have an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, life happens. My kids gets up early and I can't do it. And what am I doing? And my 8-year-old's like, hey, Dad. And it's like 6 a.m., In those moments, right, I have this choice, right? I've got this wonderful human in front of me who's about to interrupt my well-grooved habit. And my daughter now knows that she gets up early, she's coming with me. But she can't run 2 miles. I mean, she can, but it's going to take a little while, right? So what we do is I say, sweetie, throw on your clothes. If you want to come, let's do it. And we shrink the level of difficulty, right? We focus on consistency still over intensity. We go for a little loop around the park which takes about, it's maybe a quarter of a mile. It takes about 5 minutes. I call this my mini habit, and I flex the habit, right? So it goes from a medium habit to a small habit or mini habit. And I'm flexing that habit depending on my life circumstances. So my habit becomes elastic, is what Stephen Geist says. There's 3 levels of the habit: a mini, a medium, and a large. But again, consistency above all else. So I always have that option to go down in intensity. And by the way, the running habit really did start mini. All right. I want to show you this because we've already talked about it. This is the picture of my clothes on top of the nightstand. This is that trigger I talked about that decreases friction and acts like a cue or a trigger to remind me, hey, it's time to go running. Now, again, I actually wear them now. So this was stage 1 of my decreasing friction. I now have decided to go all in. All right, good. Number 2. So many habits. Number 1 is that they focus on consistency. Number 2 is that they focus you on success, meaning they kind of guarantee success, which does this amazing thing inside of you, which is build and grow your confidence. Again, if you're hitting that goal every single day, you really start feeling like, no, I'm getting good at this. You know, I'm feeling better about myself. I'm feeling more in control of my day, of my schedule, of my own behavior. And that feels good, right? There's a confidence that comes with this. So scientists call this particular kind of confidence self-efficacy, which is your belief in your ability to influence an outcome. How confident are you that when you set out to do a new goal or a new behavior, they're actually going to follow through? That's what self-efficacy is. So when you have really high levels of self-efficacy, when you set out to do that new goal and you're like a 7 or maybe an 8 in terms of how confident, because you've had past history of successes with that. You may not be on that behavior now, but you've done it really well in the past. This is why we have higher self-efficacy. Then that's going to predict the likelihood that you'll actually follow through on the behavior. The higher the self-efficacy, the more likely you are to follow through. Now, it doesn't matter how high your self-efficacy is. If the self-efficacy is quite low, that's okay too. When I'm working with a client, I'm often saying, so like 1 to 10, total gut check here, no wrong answer. Where do you feel like, how confident are you that you're actually going to follow through on doing this? It's just like a check-in, right? And they'll be like, maybe a 5. Sometimes it'll be like, like a 3. So again, lower the number. Maybe they'll be like an 8, right? But the lower the number, the more critical mini habits become, because it's about creating a history of winning. Let me show you what I mean by this. Whoops. So Albert Bandura, very famous psychologist, I'm sure some of you know this face and name. He wanted to know how you build self-efficacy because it's the most predictive thing it predicts success, right? And what he found is all you need is a history of small wins. It took about a decade to figure this out. All you need is this history of small wins. You just need to know that you're getting better at something, and you need to be able to see those small wins. So there's this lovely story, and there's some debate about the accuracy of this. So let me just put an asterisk on that. But there is this story of Jerry Seinfeld, who reportedly puts X's on each day that he writes jokes. All right, so every day that he writes jokes, he puts a big red X on that day, and he goes on with his day. And he has this big calendar of wall of calendars. And this wall of calendars is the evidence that he is on a roll, right? He's getting better at something. How does he know? Well, I do this every day. I do this behavior every day. I go for, going through the list of behaviors. I meditate every day. How do I know? It's right there. I can see it. It's visual proof that I'm doing something every day, right? I'm not focused on the outcome. The outcome for Jerry Seinfeld was, in the early days, was like how many comedy gigs he booked, right? He's focused on the behavior. Behaviors, not outcomes. And behavior is the metric of success. Does that make sense? So this is a big problem people face with health-related goals, where they're focusing on weight loss, for example, which is just an outcome, as opposed to, did I go for the run today? Or did I get to the gym today? Or did I do my Pilates today? If you focus on behaviors, and that's the definition of success, the outcomes will follow. You just got to trust the process. Like, the outcomes will come, but that's not the primary metric of success, because I don't know how many situations I've been in where the person has like a goal of losing 20 pounds and they lose 15 and they're all bummed out. They're like totally like sad about it. And I'm like, wow, you lost 50, like, that's amazing. Like, it's all in the setup of how you're measuring success. It's like Dan Sullivan says, they're minding the gap instead of the gain, right? If the metric of success is where you started and everything from there is how you're measuring progress, where did I begin? Where am I today based on where I began? That's minding the gain. How much have I gained from where I started? When you're minding the gap, you're saying, oh, I have this big goal, right? And I'm getting better at it, but all I'm looking at is the gap of how much I have left to do, which makes you feel like it's never enough. It's never enough, not quite there. And you don't hit the goal, and then you feel demotivated. It's all about the frame. So again, when we're setting up goals, and I've got to really architect this carefully, you always want to say, okay, what is our baseline? Where are we starting from? And then everything from that baseline forward is success. Everything. And so it's behaviors, not outcomes. All right. Number 3, mini habits build motivation. So one of the ways they build motivation is through building self-efficacy, as I mentioned. So self-efficacy surges your motivation, but mini habits also build motivation through this other really powerful mechanism, which is just to say that motivation follows action. It doesn't precede it. Motivation follows action. This is one of the most important brain hacks I can sort of let you in on today, which is like, we don't feel like doing something until we're already doing it. It's such a weird feature of the brain, which is like, I don't feel like going to the gym. Yeah, you're sitting down, aren't you, James? Yeah, I am, but I don't feel like it, so I don't want to go. Okay, James, now remember, you're not going to feel like it until you start moving your body. Okay, all right, let me just get up and try to do, like, I don't know, 25 jumping jacks. Maybe I'll take a walk around the block. Maybe I'll do 10 or 20 push-ups just to shift my state of my body. And then I'll decide if I want to go to the gym. Or maybe I have the mini habit of getting to the gym and walking through the doors. And that is the entire habit, right? Just getting through the doors. And if I want to go back out to my car and drive right back home, that's a possibility. But brains love continuing. This is the other side of this, is brains hate starting, but they love continuing. So typically the momentum, that the inertia that you overcame to get yourself that far is typically enough to keep you moving toward the goal. So if you do get through the doors, you're probably going to jump on the elliptical, at least for a little while, right? So same thing with email. Like it's like, how many of us have been in that place where it's like, oh yeah, we're in triple digits now. There's over 100 unread emails. What am I going to do with it? This is bad. No problem. Set your timer for 10 minutes. Clear out as much as you can in 10 minutes. You've only got to put 10 minutes. I know it's a bear. It's like ugly. It's so much stuff. Put in 10 minutes, set the timer. And then after 10 minutes, then decide, once you've been working on it for 10 minutes, you've cleared out 37 spam emails, right? Then decide if you want to continue. And if you don't, free game, you're off the hook. But if you do, and surprisingly, you more often will than won't want to continue because you're on a roll. And now you're like, inbox 0 is it's right there. I can't stop now. I'm moving, right? This is how brains work. You have to shrink the level of difficulty in order to stop feeling the resistance, to get a little bit of momentum. And then that little bit of momentum is what surges and creates more momentum to get you through the rest of the hard thing. All right. So many habits grow, as I mentioned, right? So they start easy, but they start little, but they get bigger over time. How does this happen? Usually through bonus reps. So again, BJ Fogg, the professor from Stanford, he'd do 2 push-ups and then he'd throw in 10 more just because he was feeling good about himself. Felt like I hit it again. Nice work, BJ. Let's throw in 10 more, right? So bonus reps is how these begin. And then again, over time, you can create these levels of habits. So small would be mini, medium, maybe you bump this up, right? For me, this is what it is for my aerobic exercise in the morning, which is like the mini habit is once around the park. The medium habit is the 2-mile loop. And the big habit, which I rarely do, but it is an option, and occasionally I'll hit this on a weekend if we go for a long hike or something, is a 4-mile, 40-minute habit, 40 minutes of continuous aerobic exercise. So I've got a small, medium, and large version of almost every habit I have, which again allows me to focus on consistency because I always have the option of shrinking the size and getting it done, even if I don't feel like it. All right, mini habits build willpower. So again, willpower, that battery I said, which is limited, that it runs out, can actually get bigger. So this is a lovely feature of brains, that your self-control, the brakes can get more efficient and better. And that's just sort of a side benefit from building mini habits. And the last thing is that mini habits boost your sense of choice or autonomy, your sense of control, sense of freedom, which is one of the reasons they're so powerful, is that you stay motivated. That's very conducive to high states of motivation, is sense of choice. And they're flexible. They're small and flexible, as BJ Fogg says, instead of big and brittle. Small and flexible instead of big and brittle. So you can take them on vacation and they don't break. All right, so how do you set these things up? After I blank, then I will blank. Some of you will notice this. This is a classic after-then plan. This originally came from the if-then plan research from Peter Gollwitzer's lab. But this is a slight modification of that. And it's how we do what's called habit stacking. So after I step out of the shower, then I will meditate for 5 minutes. After I put my toothbrush in the toothbrush holder, then I will set out my clothes on the nightstand. And after I set out my clothes on the nightstand, then I will write 3 things I'm grateful for in my gratitude journal. That's a little 1, 2, 3 stack, right? So morning routines are brilliant for habit stacking. After this, then I'll do this. After that, I'll do the next thing. After the next thing, I'll do the following thing. But basically, you're linking a new baby behavior to an already existing behavior. What do we do all day? What do we do all day? Multiple times a day. We go to the bathroom multiple times a day. We eat 3 meals, we get dressed, we take a shower, we brush our teeth twice a day. We sit down at a desk, we get in our car. I mean, again, these seem like, are these really habits? Yes. They're things we do similarly and consistently day after day, right? Which is the definition of a habit. So link it to one of those things you already do. That's how you're literally planting, this sentence is planting a seed from which a fully formed habit will grow. Now, if you structure it in this way, just to give you a little insight into Peter Gollwitzer's research, the likelihood that you'll follow through on the behavior goes from 33% to 75%. Wow. The likelihood of following through, you or a client, on this behavior, if you structure it like this, after I blank, then I will blank, goes from 33% to 75%. These are called implementation intentions, and they make super concrete what otherwise is just a nice, vague, good intention and make it actionable for the brain. They basically program the brain in the way that computer would program. You would program a computer, you program your brain in a sense in this way, and your brain knows what's supposed to come next, which just means that you're like preloading the decision before it happens. So it becomes automatic and unconscious in the moment that you do that next thing. All right. Number 2, celebrate progress. Those percentages, Jan, were 33% to 75%. 33% is without this structuring it with this sentence. 75% is when you use if then or after then plans. It jumps to 75%. All right, celebrate progress. Celebrating progress is really important, and it's something it's hard for us adults to do, but it's critical. it releases dopamine, and dopamine is one of the things that fuses habits together more quickly. In other words, if you want to speed up the rate at which you're forming new habits, celebrate immediately after doing the behavior. It's not just because it feels good. That's one thing. What it does is it rewires the brain more quickly. All right, last, how many should you work on at a time? When they're mini habits, my favorite number is actually 3. So 2 to 4 is the range. 3 is probably my favorite number. This all depends on willpower. So if they're medium or hard level habits, typically you can't work on more than 1 to 2 at a time. So it depends on the difficulty of the habit. But with mini habits, it's usually about 2 to 4 at a time. Okay. If this has been helpful, I have a sort of a PDF of this presentation. If you text the word habit to 44144, it should spit you back that PDF. If for some reason it doesn't, because for some reason when I was testing this morning, it seemed that it was not quite working as it should, that's my email and I could send it to you. So shoot me an email and I will send that infographic to you, which is just a summary of everything we've talked about today. Okay. All right. Let's go into Q&A. I think we have a few minutes for Q&A. I suppose also just mention briefly or end with this before we do that, as Rochelle had said, this is the information about my course. So this is just a quick sample. The course is very much like this, but it's an 8-week course. It's 30 continuing education credits. The website for that is coaches.brainbydesign.com. And if you use the coupon code Southeast, all one word, it'll give you $200 off the course. And we start that course on September 9th.
Great. And I put that in the chat for everybody, so you can go in there and grab it. James, we did have some questions.
Please.
Let me go to it. One of them was, we mentioned a lot of different book resources, and there was a request to get that list. I know they all went into the chat, but they're kind of up and down in there.
Sure. Yeah, happy to send that to you, Rochelle.
Okay.
I would say, so if somebody's asking, okay, where do I start with habits? Probably the best book to start with is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm sure a lot of you know it already. BJ Fogg does have his own book called Tiny Habits. It's excellent. It's a little academic-ish, just be aware of that, but it's full of really good tools for coaches. So I do recommend that. Probably the other one that I would say is probably my number 3 recommendation on habits is Gretchen Rubin's book, Better Than Before. Those are probably my top 3 habit recommendations. But we have
a request for the code again, if you can drop that in the chat to text. And then I had 2 questions that came up really early in the conversation, and I didn't want to interrupt you. Is this discussion of myelin leading to habit stacking? That was early on when we were in the scientific side of things.
Yeah. Is this a question of myelin leading to habit stacking? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it said this discussion of myelin leading to habit stacking. I didn't know how to answer it, so I thought I would put it out to you.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a direct connection between so yes, there is a connection between myelin and all behaviors that get easier. It's probably the way to describe this. So if you're forming a habit stack and the brain knows what comes next and what comes after that and what comes after that, inevitably you're linking together different behaviors through a common neural pathway. And the thing that's really greasing the circuits, in a sense, is the myelin. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then I had another question that I thought was great. Do certain conditions or diagnosis disrupt this brain functioning, like ADHD, et cetera, making it more difficult for some to form habits?
The first part of it, what is it that's disrupting?
Certain conditions and diagnosis, such as ADHD, somebody on the spectrum? Is it harder for them to form habits?
Yeah. So one of the things in the early days of any kind of habit formation is, okay. Attention matters in the beginning, right? So attention matters. In other words, so taking the example of someone with ADHD, there's going to be slightly different recommendations, I would say, for someone who's in that boat. And what it's going to look like is trying to get that. There's going to be more pre-decisions, I would say, involved. So in other words, less conscious attentional effortful processing, less willpower, I guess, in that early stage, which is what most people are doing, is they're sort of pushing through that hard phase, those first 66 days in a sense, with willpower. With different, I just call it broadly neurodiversity, needs look like, is you're just going to start using different strategies. So things like pre-deciding, after then plans, if then plans also. So making things contingent. So if I, if it, again, I'm using eating as an example, but if the waiter, if the waiter asks if we want desserts, I will politely decline. So that if then pre-decision is already set up immediately before this happened. This is true with everybody, but I think if then and after then plans as a sort of preloaded decision become ever so slightly more important with those kind of folks.
Fantastic. That was the last of the questions. Lots of comments coming through. Just fantastic presentation, James. This was so wonderful. And hard to believe that it's just a taste of what mini habits and tiny habits are all about.
No, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be with all of you. This was such a fun group. I would love to meet all of you. I'm moving to the Northeast in a couple of weeks, not the Southeast, but closer than where I am now, I guess.
Easier to get here for sure. Well, James, we had over 100 people on the call, and we're still close to 100 on the call. So you definitely held our attention. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Anik now.
Thank you, James. This was wonderful. Great comments in the chat. It was some of people's best presentations they've seen from the Southeast webinar series. Thank you to Rochelle and ICF Central Florida for hosting this. And we will send out the post-webinar email with all the great information, the recording, the slides. I'll include the chat in there, and then I'll include this information from James on the program as well, so you all can take advantage of that.
And just to pipe back in, the text is not working, just so you know. So James did provide his email. Please email him direct. It's James at Brains by Design. And that's been in the chat a couple of times. And then of course you can always reach out to Anik or myself if you're having any trouble with that.
Brain by Design, singular, very close. James at Brain by Design, you got it.
Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Have a great day.